This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. More on that in a bit. Video game characters never stay still. Each new game in a series is a chance for its cast to pick up new moves or abilities. But with the Smash roster and its oldest veterans, it's rare that we see the new stuff cycle into their movesets. Sure, sometimes a final smash or a move or two gets swapped, but most of the time their original kits have stuck around, leading to some dated depictions. But we can still tap into newer source material by repurposing an old mechanic from Smash 4. Custom specials gave everyone in the base game alternate versions of their special attacks, letting them customize their loadouts. And while they didn't go so well in practice, what if the next Smash game brought them back with their potential fully realized? Let's see what that might look like for this eclectic batch of 4 fighters. To streamline the process, we're sticking to 1 alt per special, and they will be alts and not completely new stuff. But not only will they, hopefully, be more creative than what Smash 4 had, they'll pull from parts of the character's source material that their base kits currently don't. Do I have your attention? Alright, let's begin. Who better to start with? Kirby's in the spotlight once more with his series' big jump to full 3D. He's been part of Smash since the very beginning, and because of that, his moveset has felt increasingly dated with each new entry. But our revamped take on custom specials could give him alternates that pull from stuff he's picked up in the time since, including recently. Kirby's Inhale is the move that defines him, both in his games and in Smash. In practice, it's a short-range command grab that pulls in a nearby opponent and lets you spin him back out as a projectile or copy their neutral special for a while. But its deceptively small hitbox makes it pretty tricky to use in practice. So what if he had an alt that lacked that weakness? Good thing he got a more powerful Inhale in Kirby and the Amazing Mirror that he's kept ever since. Instead of having to hold down for a while like in the games, our version has him go into a super Inhale immediately to pull fighters or objects in from twice as far away, with the downside of slower startup than the regular version, making it harder to use outside of mix-ups or landing traps. But when used for those, it'd be much more successful at getting you an ability you want. Hammer Flip's got a reputation in the Kirby games that didn't carry over to Smash. This chargeable swing with devastating power works better against bosses with huge hurt boxes and predictable AI than it does against player-controlled opponents. You'll basically never land it in a real match unless you break someone's shield or get one a hell of a read. But Kirby's newest outing gives him a new hammer that might work better. One of the ability's upgrades in Forgotten Land swaps Kirby's wooden mallet for a lighter and faster toy hammer, and we can have its own version of Hammer Flip charge and swing much faster. Quicker startup and less end lag make it actually somewhat practical to use for ledge traps and tech chases, but its damage and knockback also take a hit, not even killing until around when Kirby's smash attacks start to. Final Cutter's kinda weird by ultimate standards. You'd think the up and down motion would let it punish stuff the way Ether or Clim Hazard do, but it has too much startup to punish out a shield while being just as vulnerable when recovering. Its only upside is the shockwave at the end, which itself is flawed. Could we use an alt to give it a more defined role somehow? Fortunately, yes! Buzzsaw Cutter is the ability's 3rd stage in Forgotten Land, and our take on it has Kirby whip out a spinning saw much faster than the default version's blade and hold it in front for a couple hits before the jump starts. This gives it actual use as an out-of-shield punish, and when Kirby comes back down, he tosses the saw forward for even more hits to anyone in front of him. The catch? Much more end lag afterward, making him easy to whiff punish. Kirby's specials cannot catch a break, can they? Turning into solid rock, or another heavy object, and dropping onto opponents' heads sounds strong on paper, but the long startup and vulnerability as you change back make it impractical outside of edgeguarding linear recoveries. But what if we doubled down on that? Kirby's Return to Dreamland introduced Heavy Smash, a technique that has Kirby take longer to transform, but turn into a bigger object that hits anyone he plummets onto even harder. Not only would telegraphed recoveries have to fear its larger hitbox, he'd even create a small damaging shockwave when he hits the ground. Still, it'd be even more telegraphed on top of still being weak to grabs, so it's very much something that requires thinking ahead and being safe about using it. Speaking of being safe, this video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Surfshark is a VPN, short for Virtual Private Network, that takes the data your computer or phone sends to your network and encrypts it beforehand. This keeps your personal information nice and safe, so any malicious actors can't get their hands on it. No hackers, scammers, or phishing attempts to worry about. It even blocks off intrusive ad software for greater privacy and peace of mind. Take that, algorithms. Surfshark also lets you change your IP address to any number of alternates in over 65 countries, letting you customize your browsing experience based on your current needs. See? On topic. This added flexibility can let you do stuff like find shows on your streaming service of choice that aren't available in your home country for various reasons, but are in another. Now that's a nice trade-off. You, the viewer, can even get a special deal. Follow the link down in the description and enter this code, and you can sign up with an 83% discount and 3 extra months free. There's even a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have a safety net if things don't work out. Go ahead and pause to make sure you spell the name correctly. Thank you to Surfshark for the sponsorship, and now, let's see which character's up next. Hey, here's a malicious actor now. This dark doppelganger of Samus proved popular enough to sneak into Ultimate as an Echo Fighter, but in a disappointing turn, the moveset we got for Dark Samus is nearly identical to regular Samus with nothing that provides a different take on the moveset. What say we rectify that as best we can with a set of custom specials completely different than what we gave the real Samus last episode? The misnamed Charge Beam is Smash's archetypical chargeable projectile, capable of dealing a huge hit with added stun and combo ability when charged up. Shame that Dark Samus's version is a carbon copy despite the different looking visuals. But there is an alternate we can use that pulls more directly from canon. Appearing in the very first encounter with Dark Samus, the Shrapnel Beam is charged like usual, but instead of the shot getting bigger and stronger, firing releases a shotgun-like cluster of projectiles that deals rapid damage in an area ahead. The longer you charge, the more total hits. This changes Dark Samus' zoning completely, sacrificing a powerful long-range threat for a mid-range to slightly beyond attack that beats out just about anything it can outspace, though its utter lack of kill power forces Dark Samus to use other means to finish off her foes. Her gender is hard to pin down with Metroids. Missiles are a mostly straightforward zoning tool with the slight twist of having 2 versions. Use a tilt input for a standard missile with minor homing ability, or use a smash input for a stronger straight shooting super missile. If that sounds like a copy of regular Samus, that's because this move is a copy. At least Dark Samus canonically uses missiles in her boss fights, but we can do something more interesting. Like infusing them with Phazon and tapping B up to 3 times to prep multiple missiles at once before letting them fly at rapid speed. This missile barrage locks onto the location of the nearest opponent in line of sight before firing, bombarding them like Palutena's auto reticle but with more firepower. But since these start above Dark Samus and move from there, they can't control space immediately in front of her any longer, making this version worse at actual zoning and built to flush out campers instead. Screw Attack is a late-game upgrade that Smash repurposed into a multi-hit recovery move that doubles as Dark Samus' fastest punish out of shield, and it's also something she never used in her boss fights. But just like with the others, we can give it an alt based on something she does use. This version starts with a spinning jump like before, but at its apex, Dark Samus hangs in midair and generates a circle of damaging Phazon that deals multiple hits to anyone in a moderately large area around her. The circular burst is a better anti-air and platform trap than its counterpart, and it even has slightly better kill power, but it completely lacks any hitbox until the burst appears, eliminating its out-of-shield ability. Is it worth the trade-off? That's for you to decide. Then there are the Morph Ball bombs. The delayed explosion is a key part of Dark Samus' ledge traps and makes her disadvantaged state particularly annoying to deal with online. Also, while she does shift into Morph Ball mode for a few attacks, she never actually uses bombs. But there's something more sinister we can make an alt out of, something more lore-inspired. Pulling off a lower scale version of the Phazon Leviathans from Metroid Prime 3, Dark Samus drops a small Phazon seed. After a longer delay than the regular bombs, it creates a small blue explosion. Anyone caught in the radius takes no knockback at first, which renders it useless at ledge trapping, but becomes infected by the released Phazon, taking damage over time that ramps up the longer they're affected. Moving around and performing attacks can eventually get it off, with much more effort than dislodging a flower, but that panic itself is something you can take advantage of. Back to the very beginning we go, with a character who has somehow managed to be at least competent in every Smash game so far, and is arguably one of Ultimate's strongest. But Pikachu's impressive competitive showing overshadows a moveset that's seen minimal changes since Melee, specials included. Pikachu hasn't really needed an overhaul of his specials, or hers if you're using the Libre alt, but what we can do is add a new set of alternates that pull at least partially from moves created in the time since. You know, despite Pokemon characters having such extensive movesets to work with, it's interesting how Thunder Jolt isn't actually from the mainline games, pulls from Pikachu's very first trading card instead. Not that it makes the long-lasting bouncing ball of lightning any less effective at covering your approaches or camping out opponents. Any alt we give to this needs to do something unique. Which is why I chose something faster paced. This version sends out an electric bolt like usual, straight ahead if on the ground and diagonally down if in the air, that detonates into a small shockwave the moment it touches anything. Thunder Shock is a more conventional fireball type projectile, moving faster and dealing more damage. It's better at covering approaches, but worse for defensive play. Smash 4 had a custom with this name, but unlike that version, ours has greater max range, doesn't go off automatically after a set distance, and doesn't have as much end lag. Skull Bash has Pikachu lower his head and charge, then fly forward with a powerful headbutt. It's also never actually been part of the line's natural moveset. It can only be learned through a TM in specifically Gen 1. Still, it works as an alternate recovery and source of damage, albeit kinda slow for such a fast-paced character. Our alternate leans harder into the damage-dealing part. Based on a move Pikachu's had since Gen 2, Spark has him gather static around his head while charging and fly forward faster but with less total distance. More importantly, if anyone gets hit by it, the stored electricity gets released in the form of a multi-hit attack. This gives it a more defined role as a strong landing trap or tech chase option. Not as useful for recovering with, but it's not like Pikachu needs greater help with that 99% of the time. Because Quick Attack is a thing. Back-to-back electrical air dashes send Pikachu a long distance while being difficult to hit and potentially tapping opponents during it and getting yourself out of a bad spot or setting up a combo of your own in certain situations. It's oft considered one of the best up specials in the game for good reason, so an alt for it will need to be worthwhile for its own reasons. For that, we tap into an electric-type move from Gen 5 that provides more offense. Electro Ball only has Pikachu air dash once, but it goes 1.5 times the distance of a quick attack dash. Oh, and he covers himself in a sphere of lightning with a much bigger hitbox that deals multiple hits to anyone in the way. Lets you use it for offense more, even if it's no longer a combo starter, makes it even harder to contest, and the ball even keeps going a short distance after the move ends. Wait, isn't that just like Mistral Dash from Hades? Huh. Then we have Thunder, a move that manages to be pretty unique even by today's standards. The lightning bolt from above is a surprise juggling move, edge guarding tool, and lethal combo finisher all in one, though it still has shortcomings, like getting stopped by platforms or other obstructions. Which is why this variant, based on a move from Gen 4, has its uses. Discharge forgoes the lightning bolt completely, using the animation to have Pikachu charge and release a rapidly expanding electric circle that zaps anyone in reach, with range rivaling Ike's in all directions by the end and dealing up to 4 hits if the whole thing connects. It trades vertical coverage for pressure around Pikachu himself and is scary off stage for completely different reasons. Could be particularly cheesy at the ledge. It would need to have a drawback to not end up overpowered, like maybe a ton of end lag. Finally, we have a character I have a particular history with. The most unique of Smash's Fire Emblem cast, and in my opinion, the one people understand the least. Robin has been my personal main for 2 games and counting, so I'm uniquely equipped to handle this one. Let's come up with a second set of spells that tap into even more of what this character, and magic in general in Fire Emblem, is capable of. Not to be confused with Pikachu's down special, Robin's chargeable lightning magic can cast 4 different spells with 4 different roles. A quick, low-commitment poke with Thunder, a conventional zoning projectile with L Thunder, a high-damaging, safe-on-shield, anti-rushdown cluster of pain with Arc Thunder, and a full-screen punish/zone breaker with Thoron. What can we do for an alt that provides something different from that? Well, the signature tome of Male Robin's base version in Fire Emblem Heroes is an offshoot of Thoron that we can tweak to function like a more typical charged projectile. Tactical Bolt still has 4 levels of charge, but each takes the form of a 3-pronged electric beam of varying intensity. With shorter length than Thoron and only 1 hit, but greater damage at full power, it works more like Charge Beam or Shadow Ball does, and a higher knockback angle makes it more reliable at netting knockouts. But it also means losing the sheer versatility of the default neutral special and the counterplay it offers against Rushdown and Campier zoners. Arc Fire casts a fireball that explodes into a pillar of flame on contact with a fighter or stage surface, trapping anyone caught in the blaze for easy follow-ups. Despite how it might look to the untrained eye, it's actually not a zoning tool. Its massive end lag and the fact that the initial fireball gets destroyed by any attack means it is purely a trapping move and is not built to wall people out, nor does Robin need it to. But what if it could? Swapping in a different recurring fire tome, Bolganone has the initial fireball come down faster at an angle closer to Robin and create a wider patch of fire when it activates that is so much harder to maneuver around that it can work as a zoning move. However, it no longer traps anyone, only dealing a single hit with just too much knockback to follow up, and thereby ruining some of Robin's biggest combos and kill confirms. It also expends more durability, only usable 4 times per tome instead of 6. A lot of fighters use an attack to recover with, but not many use the recoil from one. Don't let the lack of protective hitbox on Elwyn deceive you. The sheer maneuverability Robin gains from it, from being able to freely choose different angles, and from literally getting buffed air movement afterward, make it a potent recovery in its own right. The first hit also doubles as one of the fastest spikes in the game. But for something less complicated, we can cheat a little and use a different recurring wind spell that wasn't actually in Fire Emblem Awakening. Instead of 2 wind blades, Cutting Gale sticks to 1 with the same range of angles as the default. But not only is this one bigger, it creates a blast of damaging wind when it hits something, making it usable as an out-of-shield punish that doesn't care about cross-ups. Being only 1 part also eliminates awkward one-blade Elwyn moments when you lose track of your durability. However, as a recovery move it only goes about 2/3 as far as default Elwyn and isn't nearly as capable of maneuvering around edgeguard attempts. Last but not least, we have Nosferatu. This health-draining command grab on a fighter very good at conditioning shields has some hidden effects. The hitbox is bigger than the animation suggests, Robin is intangible for the 4 frames it's active, it heals 1.25 times faster if it catches someone from behind, and the healing itself scales up the higher percent Robin has compared to their victim. But sometimes you just want something with power on it, so let's take an old custom from Smash 4 and go even closer to the source material. The strongest Dark Tome in Awakening, Goetia starts with a suction effect that gently pulls in nearby opponents during its slower startup. But instead of grabbing them, this version unleashes a huge dark explosion instead. Hitting hard, killing early, and dealing a ton of shield damage, it adds another big hit to Robin's repertoire if you prefer to have that over a grab that can't kill, even if you might end up missing the default's occasionally hilariously lopsided damage swings. And there you have it, my own personal take on how to reimagine the concept of custom specials and what it might look like for these 4 fighters. Who knows, maybe it'll make a comeback next game and let characters whose base kits feel dated or incomplete fill in the gaps. Or just offer some interesting alternates for their specials that feel more inspired than what we saw in Smash 4. How'd I do this time? If you haven't yet, check out the previous episodes in this series. Can't believe I've done 5 of these already. And maybe my other videos might catch your interest, like my signature series where I take characters who haven't made it into Smash yet and create ideas for animations, movesets, stats, and everything else they'd need if they did make it in. Special thanks for this video to these people here. Thanks especially to my patrons for your continued support. And thanks again to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. So, until next time, wonder what an alt version of these end screens would look like.